What if one small act of kindness could rewrite someone's entire future? It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon at Benny's Diner in Charleston, South Carolina. The lunch rush had just ended, and the place had settled into that peaceful lull, the calm before the next wave of customers. Jacob, a 28-year-old waiter known for his kind heart and modest lifestyle, was wiping down tables like he did every day, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. That's when she walked in. A young woman, clearly distraught, hair slightly disheveled, makeup smudged like she had been crying. Her name was Emily Carter, though Jacob didn't know it yet. She didn't make eye contact. She didn't smile. She slid into the corner booth like she was trying to disappear into the wall. Jacob noticed immediately. There was something in her eyes. Something broken. He walked over, gently handed her the menu, and asked if she wanted anything to drink. She nodded silently, ordered a small coffee, and sat there staring out the window for the next 20 minutes. When the coffee was gone, she asked for a grilled cheese sandwich, but her voice cracked when she said it. Like even saying those words was heavy. When it came time for the bill, she hesitated. She reached for her purse, then stopped. That's when Jacob made a decision that would flip both their worlds upside down. Without saying a word, he walked over to the cashier and paid for her entire meal. When she asked about the check, he simply smiled and said, "It's taken care of. Some days are harder than others. This one's on me." She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stared at him, blinked twice, and whispered, "Thank you." Then she got up and walked out the door. Jacob assumed that was the last he'd ever see of her. But he was wrong. The very next day, as he was setting up for the morning crowd, someone pushed open the diner door, and what he saw made his hands go numb. There she was again, Emily. But this time, she was wearing a wedding dress. A full, white, satin wedding dress with delicate lace along the sleeves and a small bouquet in her hands. The restaurant fell silent. Every fork stopped midair. Every conversation died instantly. Jacob stood frozen behind the counter, completely stunned. Who wears a wedding dress to a diner? Why had she come back? And more importantly, why was she looking straight at him? She stepped forward, slowly, each step echoing like a drumbeat in Jacob's chest. There were tear streaks on her face again, but this time they weren't from sadness. They were something else. She stopped right in front of him. "Do you remember me?" she asked. Jacob nodded, unable to speak. What she said next would change his life forever. But we'll get to that. Because behind that wedding dress was a story so deep, so painful, and so miraculous that it had already rewritten 2 lives, and was about to rewrite a third. Jacob Carson wasn't used to being the center of attention. Quiet, humble, and a bit of an introvert, he preferred the routine of pouring coffee, cracking dry jokes with regulars, and sweeping the floor while humming to classic rock. But as he stood there staring at Emily in her wedding dress, every pair of eyes in the diner was glued to him. He could feel the weight of the moment settle into his bones. "Can we talk?" Emily asked, her voice trembling but clear. Jacob nodded and gestured toward the same corner booth she had sat in the day before. Wordlessly, she walked over and sat down, her wedding dress bunching awkwardly beneath her. The diner was still silent, but the moment they both sat, the conversations resumed, hushed and speculative. Everyone was trying to figure out what was happening. But for Jacob, the rest of the world melted away. He sat across from her, searching her face for answers. Emily took a deep breath and began. "My name is Emily Carter. I was supposed to get married today." Jacob blinked. "You were supposed to?" She nodded. "This dress, this morning, this entire day, it was all planned. The venue, the vows, the cake. Everything. My fiancé, Ryan, and I had been together for 6 years. We grew up in the same neighborhood in Nashville, moved here last year for his tech job. We had a nice apartment, a dog, and what I thought was a shared future." Jacob didn't say a word. He just listened. "Yesterday," Emily continued, her voice tightening, "I found out something. Something horrible. Something that shattered everything I thought I knew about him. I was going through some receipts in his drawer. He'd left them out by mistake. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even looking for anything. But I found proof, clear, unmistakable proof, that he had been cheating on me. For months. Maybe longer. Jacob's heart sank. He knew heartbreak. But not like this. I didn't know what to do, she said, her eyes starting to water. I left the apartment without telling anyone. I didn't have my wallet, my phone was dying, and I just walked for blocks. I was numb. Everything felt unreal. I ended up here, in your diner. Jacob remembered her face yesterday, the lost look in her eyes, like a person who had been hollowed out. I didn't even mean to eat, she said, laughing bitterly. I was going to sit there and leave. But you came over and treated me like I mattered. You looked at me like I was still human. When you paid for my food, I felt seen for the first time in hours. She paused. Her next words were heavier. You don't know how close I was to doing something irreversible last night. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. But your kindness? That one gesture? It reminded me that good people still exist. That I still have a future. That I can make a different choice. Jacob finally found his voice. I didn't do anything special. I could tell you were going through something. No, Jacob. You saved me. There was silence for a few moments. The gravity of her words settled like fog between them. Today, I woke up and decided I wasn't going to let pain define my story. I wasn't going to walk down the aisle with a man who betrayed me. I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay. So I walked away from that life. Jacob looked at her wedding dress again, this time seeing it as armor, not weakness. I wore the dress, she said, following his gaze, because I needed to reclaim it. I needed to wear it on my own terms. I didn't know where I was going when I left the venue this morning. I just started walking. But somehow, I ended up back here. Jacob swallowed hard. Emily, I don't know what to say. She smiled softly. You don't have to say anything. I just needed to tell someone. Someone who reminded me of what real kindness looks like. There was a long pause between them. Then Emily reached into her small clutch and pulled out a folded envelope. I wrote you a letter last night. I didn't know if I'd see you again, but I wanted to thank you. Really thank you. You have no idea how much that sandwich meant to me. She slid the envelope across the table. Jacob hesitated before picking it up, then carefully tucked it into his apron pocket. At that moment, a customer at a nearby table dropped his fork, snapping them both out of the moment. Emily glanced around, suddenly self-conscious. I should go. I didn't mean to cause a scene. You didn't, Jacob said quickly. You're not causing anything. I'm just glad you're okay. She stood slowly, adjusted the layers of her gown, and looked at him with one final, meaningful smile. Jacob Carson, you'll never be just a waiter to me. You are the reason I chose life over a lie. With that, she turned and walked out of the diner, sunlight catching the edge of her veil as the door slowly swung shut behind her. Jacob sat in stunned silence, his hand resting on the envelope in his apron. He hadn't saved a life. He'd just done what he thought was right. But what he didn't know was that this story wasn't over. Not even close. The next few days blurred together for Jacob. He couldn't stop thinking about Emily and her wedding dress, the letter she'd left behind, and the raw emotions she had shared with him. The diner had been bustling as usual, with regulars filling the booths and the coffee machine constantly hissing, but Jacob felt like he was in a fog. Each time the door opened, his heart would jump, half expecting her to walk in, dressed in her wedding gown again, ready to share another life-altering revelation. But she didn't return. Days passed, then a week. And just as Jacob was beginning to convince himself that maybe it had all been a figment of his imagination, a familiar face appeared again. This time, it was Ryan, Emily's fiancé. Jacob recognized him immediately. He'd seen him around the diner a few times, usually with Emily, chatting casually, laughing. But today, Ryan didn't have that easy smile. Today, his face was red with anger, his eyes hard and desperate. Ryan walked straight up to Jacob at the counter, barely looking at the other patrons. His voice was tense, almost too controlled. You're Jacob Carson, right? Jacob hesitated. Yeah, that's me. Can I help you? Ryan slammed his fist on the counter, startling Jacob. I need to know where Emily is. You saw her, didn't you? You talked to her. I want to know what she told you. Jacob's pulse quickened. He'd expected this moment to come. After all, Emily had left Ryan. There had to be some explanation, some confrontation coming. But he hadn't expected it to be like this. She didn't want to see you, Jacob said quietly. She needed to get away. Get away? Ryan scoffed, his nostrils flaring. She's been missing for days. The wedding's called off, and I have no idea where she's gone. I'm not leaving until you tell me where she is, Jacob. I know you talked to her. Jacob stood his ground, trying to keep his voice calm. Look, I don't know where she is. She just needed space. She came in here after everything fell apart. I helped her. That's all. Ryan's eyes narrowed. You helped her? What? With a free meal? What else did you give her, huh? Some kind of false hope? A shoulder to cry on? She was supposed to be mine, and you had no right to interfere. You don't know what's really going on here, do you? Jacob felt the anger rising in his chest.
What do you mean by that?
Ryan leaned in closer, his voice low, like he was revealing a secret. You think Emily just walked out on me because of some receipts?
No.
It's bigger than that. She wasn't the first woman I've betrayed. And I won't be the last. Jacob recoiled, his mind spinning. What was Ryan talking about? How could he say something like that with so little remorse? Ryan continued, his voice a bitter sneer. The truth is, Emily and I never belonged together. We never had the life we pretended to have. She was just another piece of the puzzle I needed to fill, someone to keep the facade going. But now it's over. And I'll find her. She won't get away with this. Jacob's heart raced, and everything inside him screamed for him to stop Ryan right then and there. But before he could say another word, Ryan turned and stormed out of the diner, leaving Jacob frozen in disbelief. The truth, it wasn't what Jacob had expected. But there was something about Ryan's words that struck a chord. This wasn't just a breakup. This wasn't just a man who had been caught cheating. There was something deeper, darker happening beneath the surface. The next morning, as Jacob walked into work, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His hands felt clammy, and his thoughts raced. He couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. And then it happened. Jacob's phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him out of his thoughts. He glanced down and saw the name, Emily Carter. His pulse skipped. Without hesitation, he answered. Jacob? It's Emily, she said, her voice shaky. I need you to listen to me. I don't have much time. Emily, where are you? What's going on? Ryan was just here. I know, she interrupted, her voice rising with urgency. That's why I'm calling you. You need to know the truth about Ryan. About everything. Jacob's heart pounded in his chest. What do you mean? You're not safe, Emily. He's dangerous. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then, in a near whisper, Emily spoke again. Ryan's been hiding something. A lot of things, actually. He's been running a secret life for years, using me as his cover. The man I thought I was marrying isn't who he really is. Jacob's head spun as he processed her words. What do you mean? What's he been hiding? Emily took a deep breath, as if she were preparing to reveal something monumental. I found out yesterday, after I walked away from him. The receipts weren't just for dinners or hotels. He's been involved in some pretty shady business, Jacob. Money laundering, illegal investments. I don't know the full extent of it. But what I do know is that Ryan has made a lot of enemies. And I'm the one he's been using to cover it up. Jacob's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a cheating scandal. This was bigger. Dangerous. And Emily had stumbled into something far darker than she could have ever imagined. What should I do? Jacob asked, his voice barely a whisper. You need to be careful. Stay away from Ryan. If he finds out you're involved in any way, it could get ugly. He won't stop until he's in control of everything and everyone. I'm leaving town, Jacob. It's the only way I can stay safe. Emily, wait. Don't go alone. Let me help you.
No.
I have to do this on my own. But thank you for everything. You're the only one who showed me there was hope. Before Jacob could respond, the line went dead. The twist in this story had only just begun. Jacob didn't sleep that night. Emily's voice replayed in his head like a warning echoing through a tunnel. Money laundering. Enemies. Secrets. The girl who once cried into a coffee cup now found herself tangled in something criminal, something potentially fatal. And she was all alone. The next morning, Jacob arrived at the diner early. He needed to think, to plan, to do something other than wait around helplessly. But fate was already moving faster than he could. At 7:12 a.m., a black SUV pulled up outside the diner. Not Ryan this time. Jacob knew that car too well. These men were strangers. Two stepped out, clean-cut, wearing sunglasses, earpieces tucked behind their ears. Too polished to be thugs. Too intense to be customers. Jacob watched them through the front window, heart pounding. They entered without hesitation. The taller one approached the counter. "You Jacob Carson?" Jacob nodded slowly. The man flashed a badge briefly, too fast to verify. "Federal agents. We're here regarding Emily Carter." Jacob froze. "Is she okay?" "That depends on who's asking," the agent replied, voice cold and precise. "And what you know?" They didn't sit down. They didn't even blink. Every word they spoke was loaded with an undercurrent of threat, veiled as professionalism. "We believe Ms. Carter has information regarding an ongoing investigation," the second agent added. "She's not a suspect yet, but anyone aiding her could be subject to legal action." Jacob's mind reeled. "She called me, told me she was in danger. Said Ryan was into illegal things, laundering, fraud, even identity theft." The agents exchanged a glance. They knew. "She's not wrong," the first one said. "Ryan Holden's been on our radar for 2 years. But every time we got close, he slipped away. Until now." Jacob leaned forward, whispering, "Why now? What changed?" "You," the agent said flatly. "Or more specifically, your act of kindness. That small gesture, a comped meal, a brief conversation, it shook her. Made her see the life she was about to marry into." Jacob's breath caught. That moment had changed everything. "But here's the thing," the second agent interjected. "Ryan knows she talked. We intercepted a burner phone conversation. He's furious. He's looking for her, and he's not working alone. Which means anyone connected to her is at risk." Jacob blinked. "You're saying I'm a target now?" The agent nodded. "Like it or not, you're part of this story." A chill ran down Jacob's spine. "We can protect you," the taller agent said. "But we need you to tell us everything you know." Every word Emily said. Every place she could have gone. Jacob hesitated. What if she doesn't want to be found? "She might not have a choice," the agent said. "Because Ryan has just been officially indicted. And he'll do anything to keep her from testifying." That was the tipping point. Jacob gave them everything he had, where she might hide, where her grandmother used to live in Oregon, a cabin she'd once mentioned in passing, even the song she used to play when she needed to calm down. Then the agents left, and Jacob waited. Later that afternoon, the diner was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but heavy, like the calm before storm. Jacob was wiping down tables when his phone buzzed again. A message. No name. Just a number. "You think you're helping her? You've made things worse. Stay out of it, Jacob." He stared at the screen. The sender, unknown. He showed the message to the agents the moment they returned. Their reaction was immediate. Trace the number, lock down the building, secure Jacob in a safe location. "This isn't just a scare tactic," one of them said. "They're closing in." By nightfall, the diner was surrounded, plainclothes officers posted outside, unmarked cars parked down the street. The quaint neighborhood now felt like a war zone. But Jacob didn't leave. He couldn't, because Emily hadn't texted, hadn't called, and he knew what that meant. Something was wrong. Hours passed. Then a call came through. Emily's voice, panicked and breathless. "Jacob, they found me. I don't know how. I think Ryan has people watching my family. I went to the cabin, you were right, but I wasn't safe there. They chased me through the woods. I'm hiding in a ranger station near the old hiking trail on Hawthorne Ridge." Jacob grabbed the phone, stepped outside, motioned to the agents. She's in trouble now. She needs help. They acted immediately, triangulating the call, dispatching backup, coordinating with local authorities. The operation was on, and Jacob insisted on going with them. The agent hesitated, but Jacob looked him straight in the eye. You said I'm part of the story. Let me finish it. They reached Hawthorne Ridge at 11:27 p.m. It was pitch black. Cold. The kind of silence that makes every sound feel louder than it should be. They moved fast, flashlights cutting through the trees, weapons drawn. Jacob stayed close behind, heart pounding like a drum. He didn't know what they'd find. Emily scared and alone? Ryan waiting in the dark? And then they heard it. A scream.
Hi. Desperate.
Emily's voice. Jacob ran, ignoring the agent's protests, dodging branches and leaping roots until he reached the clearing. There she was, Emily, cornered near the ranger's hut, Ryan gripping her arm with a look of pure rage on his face. You think you can run from me? Ryan growled. You think this little stunt will fix anything? Let her go. Jacob shouted. Ryan turned, and for a moment, everything stopped. Then chaos erupted. An agent tackled Ryan to the ground, others swarming in. Handcuffs snapped. Emily collapsed into Jacob's arms, sobbing. Sirens wailed in the distance. It was over, but the war wasn't done, because the world was about to learn who Ryan Holden really was. The next morning, the diner was unusually quiet, but not because business was slow. On the contrary, there were people outside, cameras flashing, reporters murmuring, curious locals peeking through windows. The story had gone public overnight. Billionaire's secret empire busted by bride's last-minute escape. Waiter's act of kindness exposes national crime ring. Small-town diner becomes center of federal sting operation. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. But inside the diner, Jacob didn't feel like a hero.
He was exhausted.
Not from fear, but from realizing how fragile life really is. One free meal. One human gesture. That's all it took to disrupt a multi-million-dollar criminal operation. To save a life. To rewrite a destiny. And that destiny walked through the diner door again, this time wearing something familiar. Not the wedding dress from yesterday. Not the pale hoodie from the first time they met. But a simple yellow sundress, the one she'd said she hadn't worn since her mom passed away. Emily. She looked different now. Lighter. Like the weight of the world had finally been lifted off her shoulders. Jacob froze. I figured I owed you breakfast, she smiled softly. He blinked, then laughed, a real, genuine, soul-cleansing laugh. You're about 12 meals behind now. She slid into the booth. Then I'd better start catching up. They didn't talk about Ryan, or court dates, or witness protection. They talked about music, her love for photography. The way the world felt wider when you weren't afraid anymore. And when the check came, she grabbed it first. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Trying to be poetic? No, she said, meeting his eyes. Trying to return the favor. Because you didn't just pay for my meal, you gave me a reason to stay alive. The silence between them was warm now. Not heavy. Not fearful. Just full of possibility. And now, dear viewer, ask yourself this. What would you have done if a stranger walked into your life, broken, scared, wearing a smile just to keep from crying? Would you have seen it? Or looked away? Because sometimes the greatest revolutions start with the smallest kindnesses. One cup of coffee. One conversation. One human being daring to care. So, here's your challenge. Be that person. Start that ripple. Don't underestimate what a single gesture can do. If this story moved you, drop a red heart in the comments. Share this with someone who believes in second chances. And subscribe because we're not done telling stories that matter. Let this one act of kindness remind us. Sometimes the biggest heroes wear aprons. And the most powerful love stories? They begin with a receipt.